Awesome. Thank you everyone for coming today. We're super duper excited about the panel that we're hosting. So some of you may have already heard about the efforts of Alluvial and the build out of the Liquid Collective. We initially announced this effort during Permissionless in May and have since been incredibly busy progressing, the vision of building an enterprise-grade liquid staking standard with industry leaders in the space. So that's what we're really here to talk about today. I'm super duper excited that we're joined by our amazing panelists today. My name is Schmiedt. I'm the head of sales for Coinbase Cloud. And we have a new joiner on the panel today. Some of you may have heard the news yesterday, but Kraken is joining the Liquid Collective in its effort to build an enterprise standard for liquid staking. And with that, I'll get started with you, Robert, for introductions.
Cool. Hey, good to be here with everybody. I'm Robert Moore, head of corporate development at Kraken.
Yeah, I'm Laszlo Szabo, CEO and co-founder of Kiln.
Ben Spiegelman, head of corp dev at Figment.
Matt Leisinger, the CEO and co-founder of Alluvial.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Schnarch, VP of product for Custody at Coinbase and the CEO of the Trust Company.
All right, so let's get started. Maybe before we get kicked off, let's maybe start with the foundations and really talk about what liquid staking really is and what are the problems liquid staking is actually trying to solve for. And maybe we get started with you, Matt.
Thanks, Mara. So with staking, there's an unbonding time. You lock your tokens in the network, and for that, you're rewarded with the native token. And so what liquid staking does is when you stake your tokens, you're actually given a receipt token that evidences your claim on the staked token. So you get both the benefit of earning rewards as well as liquidity. And so you're not choosing between staking and DeFi. You can actually stake your token, get the receipt token, and go into DeFi for other use cases.
Awesome. So I heard something interesting there. You mentioned the receipt tokens that live inside of these ecosystems. So maybe, Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about what we're really talking about here?
Sure. The concept's actually pretty simple at the end of the day. A receipt token is a token issued by the protocol that represents your claim in an underlying staked asset. So if you stake 1 ETH with Liquid Collective, you'll get 1 receipt token in return, LsETH in this case. And that represents, it's redeemable in the future 1-to-1 with the ETH that you staked. So that's the concept, pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess the real question is like, why does that matter, right? Like, what does that do? And I think the answer today is twofold. First, it provides liquidity and flexibility, right? Like it's right in the name. And so, I as a holder of the receipt token, don't need to wait for some unbonding period to be able to liquidate my holdings if I need to. So that's principle one. And the second is I can take the receipt token and leverage it in various DeFi applications, right? Contribute to a DeFi pool or trade it on a DEX. There's lots of applications that you can unlock without having to choose between sort of unbonding your staked asset and to engage in those activities. So that's really the two primary benefits today. I think we're really early though in the life cycle of liquid staking, and I'm really excited to see how the utility of these receipt tokens continues to evolve over time. And particularly excited to see how the group of folks on this stage are going to contribute to that.
That's awesome. How should we be thinking about the risks of liquid staking and how do these really compare to traditional staking? How should we be thinking about that? And maybe, Ben, you can shed a light on that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mara. So I think just in general, right, when you're buying cryptocurrency assets or digital assets, you have a volatile asset that you're holding on to, so you have price risk, right? That doesn't change. You still have that price risk here. But when you stake an asset, as Robert and Matt sort of articulated earlier, you have an unbonding period. And they spoke about this, but this can be anywhere from a day to 30 days. And with our industry, the volatility that happens, if you can't move out and in of your position within that time period, you could have a lot of risk. And so the inherent thing, before you even start getting to DeFi, just being able to buy a token and being able to sell it seconds later reduces the risk that you have as a holder of that asset. So there's a huge advantage of liquid staking versus staking in general. Now, having said that, there are other risks that are associated with this, right? We've seen things happen with assets unpegging, with Lido, and I think that's the big reason why we came together to build Alluvial and Liquid Collective, to be able to have an industry standard where we can mitigate some of those risks. And the ways in which we're doing that is bringing an institutional flavor and nature to this product. Transparency, KYC, large institutions that are sponsored and accredited by huge firms, to be able to bring trust and really that kind of guarantee to the space that's really needed to be able to have folks not just being involved in earning assets and earning yield, but also being able to buy a liquid token as well.
Right. I'm super excited for us to dig into that a lot more, but just for the audience as well, and for us to talk through that. So liquid staking is a fairly new technology, but one that is growing rapidly in adoption. So I would like to zoom out a little bit and get a better sense of how big this market actually is, and how are we seeing that landscape evolving and the various players that are really finding an interest in this type of technology. And maybe Aaron, you can comment on that.
Thanks, Mar. Happy to. So I was checking just before that infamous cab ride from the other side of town, and ETH stands today, and we're in the thick of winter for crypto, at about 160 bill. I think public records show that adoption for staking generally is about 11%. And so you have, a healthy $140 billion that is yet to be staked. I think that's a huge market opportunity. Now, if you think about what's out there today, there is one solution. It's nascent. It caters for, I would say, perhaps more of a retail audience. And, where I sit as the largest custodians for cryptocurrency, I think clients are increasingly looking for additional opportunity for staking, and they want the option value while ensuring highest levels of compliance and security. So, very excited about what we're building here. And I think that, we see secular trend of clients. And some of you may have seen the BlackRock announcement recently. So, we see big money coming out of TradFi into the industry. And I think this would be a cool and long-lasting product that can serve that need.
That's a really interesting perspective also from the institutional side, and how we're seeing that market, evolve and mature. So I'm curious on the Kraken side, how are you guys thinking about liquid staking today?
Yeah. So, we've thought very deeply about it. I'm not sure if this is like a well-known fact amongst the people in the room, but we actually have, I think, and somebody can fact check me, like the largest staking business of anyone in the world. And so we've obviously thought very deeply about this trend over the last 12 plus months. And I think I can probably summarize our view in three ways. So, firstly, it's here to stay. That seems evident. Liquid staking grew from relative obscurity to like 30% of ETH staking in the last 12 months. And so that's a trend that we expect to continue well into the future. And so we want to be a part of it. Clearly, here we are. So that's thing one. Thing two, and this goes beyond, I think, just staking and our philosophy around that business, but in everything that we do, we want to provide products and services to our customers that drive utility for them and a better client experience. And that's kind of what liquid staking is all about. It is just a better way to stake. It does provide more utility to the customer. And so we know that that's like aligned with our philosophy and something that we want to be a part of. And the third and maybe most important point is we believe deeply that success in this market is going to require really significant scale and liquidity, right? And so no matter how big we may be or any of the other, companies on the stage may be with respect to their share of the staking market, I don't think any individual player is going to achieve the kind of scale and depth of liquidity that's going to be needed to actually win in this market. And so that's the primary reason we were really excited to join this group of folks. And I think that in itself is worth pausing on for a minute. This is like a pretty significant group of frenemies here on stage, right? You've got Kraken, Coinbase, and Figment. And I was thinking about this on the way over here. I think this might be without precedent, actually, something like this. And if you think let's take a Web 2 analogy for a minute. When was the last time you heard about Apple, Google, and Meta collaborating to bring some innovative product to market? It just doesn't happen. So I think this is really unique, not something you see every day, and probably something that speaks to the values of our industry, actually, that you're able to get this configuration of people on stage to collaborate around something like this. So anyway. I guess those are my thoughts in a nutshell.
I love that. And you just touched on it, but we do have an incredible amount of folks that are actually sitting here today. So maybe it's fair to say this is the first enterprise DAO that we have in the space. Awesome. So you touched on one thing that, is seemingly incredibly important in building out a leading offering in the market. So you touched on liquidity there. What are the other factors that we think are critical to build a leading product in this type of space and to evolve this technology from where it, exists today? And maybe, Ben, that's something that you can tell us more about.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. So this sort of goes back to the ethos of how it all started. Robert touched upon this, but the goal here was to build liquidity, right? And how do you go about doing that is you get Coinbase and Kraken in the same room and have them kiss and make up and be best friends. And I think we did a really good job of that. Matt leading the way here, CEO of Alluvial, right? Being able to build that business for us was absolutely massive. And it's just a start, right? Coinbase and Kraken really were the first ones, but we want to have a huge onslaught of integrators that are going to come in the door to be a part of this business. And so not only can we be able to bring a lot of assets to the platform, but be able to have a distribution mechanism that's very, very wide all around the world, right? So you can come in where whoever you custody with, whoever you want to go and buy your assets with, you can find a way to be able to access the liquid collective tokens to be able to be a part of this process. And so I think that was a really, really key part of it. We talked about KYC and AML a little bit earlier, right? We really want to make sure that we have the core infrastructure components, the software piece that Kiln's building, the validator technology from Kraken and from us and from Coinbase. I think that's really, really critical to make sure that people are comfortable that things are being done appropriately. That's another big part of it. There's slashing risks involved as well, right? We are backstopping a significant portion of those losses as well. Really trying to be as transparent as possible in the protocol so people can trust what they see, trust what they buy, and feel like they're actually a part of something. I think that really is what Liquid Collective is all about. And so I think that's a big reason why we're going to have a lot of success here versus some of the other more fragmented one-off solutions that are in the market.
That's great. And Laszlo, with Kiln being one of the most critical kind of technology partners that, we're taking this to market with, would also love to hear your perspective on this. So how should we be thinking about the value of collaboration in this? And as Robert said, the unusual nature of parties coming together and building together to build something that grows the pie.
Right. I mean, I think Liquid Collective, when building this project, collaboration is really key. And it's amazing to see two competitors in the staking space and two major competitors in the exchange space. If you look back at the history of the protocol, we met with Matt and the Figment team. We were still very competitors at that time, but we look at this liquid staking market, and we've seen some other retail very successful projects, and we realized we had to do something for institutions with KYC and high standards in terms of security. So we get together. We started to build what will be and will become in the future Liquid Collective, the Ethereum solution. And then it was really natural that Coinbase and then Kraken join this initiative. So it's, we as a technological provider, we are working with integrators such as Coinbase and Kraken, with validators such as Coinbase Cloud, staked in Kraken, and Figment. And it's really important that we work very tight together. All this collaboration brings a better product ultimately for institutions, more decentralized, better liquidity, more transparency, because we have seen centralized liquid staking token that have an opaque governance and an opaque collateralization. So yeah, very excited about that, and very excited to be tech provider in this project.
We're excited too. Awesome. So maybe we dive a little bit more in on the protocol. I want to get a little bit more specific about what the protocol is really, addressing, how the protocol is built. So maybe Matt, you can talk us a little bit through, how the protocol is rolling out and what we should expect there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we saw, a few different liquid staking solutions come to market over the last year. And what we saw is they fell into two buckets. It was essentially more centralized, institutionally focused, and then some that are more crypto native but didn't meet the bar for institutions. And so we thought there was an opportunity actually to have a decentralized protocol that met this standard. And so I think one of the most important features was essentially doing KYC on all the participants for minting and burning your tokens and the receipt token. And so that was a key aspect. Another key aspect was working with validators that are some of the most trusted in the ecosystem. So we wanted to meet the enterprise grade standard and then decentralize over time. And so what we have is, as Mara mentioned, probably the first instance of an enterprise DAO, which is really compelling. I'd say the other piece is, just a structure in that, we've got integrators that are the on-ramp. So really our vision is to provide global participation in securing blockchains. One of the ways we do that is by meeting customers where they are today. So institutional customers are going to be really, really comfortable staking from custody directly. And so we brought the solution to them through our integrators, Kraken and Coinbase. And we feel like this is the best package of liquid staking.
That's great. We touched briefly on kind of the KYC and compliance need there that is super duper critical for institutions, but also enterprises that command that type of security and compliance, and that really matters. So I'm wondering, how does the protocol design for that, and at which point in the protocol is that accounted for? So maybe Laszlo, that's something you can talk us through.
Right. So KYC and AML, KYC compliance is a big piece of the protocol. A Liquid Collective will leverage its network of integrators to do the KYC and link it to an address that will be whitelisted in the protocol. So you ensure that every funds that are locked, staked at the protocol level are KYC AML compliance. Then the receipt token will still be available on secondary market and permissionless DeFi. So that was a trade-off. So again, everything that is pulled in the protocol is KYC AML compliant, and the receipt token still gather a lot of liquidity from decentralized finance. And we think this setup is obviously great to go to market.
Gotcha. No, that's super duper interesting. Should we maybe be thinking about that a little bit like USDC as an example? Where you really have kind of mint and burn happening on a KYC level, but kind of open access and inside of the ecosystem more broadly.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly right. We actually steal from the stablecoin analogy a lot there, because essentially what you can say is we want to do KYC on mint and burn, but not on transfer, because we want the token to flow freely within DeFi. We think there's a ton of innovation that's going to happen on top of these tokens, and so we're building a primitive that others can really push the financial product innovation on top of this forward.
Got it. Amazing. That's super clear. Thank you. So one thing that I was wondering, just as we're kind of hearing news and more opportunities and technology developments emerging in the space, there was recently an announcement around Coinbase releasing the launch of CBETH and obviously the support of Coinbase inside of the Alluvial ecosystem. So Aaron, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how Coinbase thinks about the strategy more broadly.
Absolutely. So look, I mean, Coinbase at this point is a multi-product company, and I think we spoke publicly about our desire to serve as a bridge into Web3, and with the community. And so we recognize that we have different segments of clients and different needs. So I think CBETH is a great option for one segment. I think when it comes to, institutional, no-fail grade, out of cold storage at scale, we feel that Liquid Collective is uniquely positioned, and we're very excited about this offering.
Got it. And let's stick with you for a second there, but we heard a little bit from Robert about, what got Kraken excited about the initiative and, liquid staking more generally. But I would love to hear from the Coinbase side, what was really the motivation and what got you excited about supporting the Liquid Collective initiative?
Right. Yeah, great question. So look, you mentioned the USDC example. And I think similarly there, the stance we took was one that looks more broadly at the industry and thinking about the collective progression of us driving forward the crypto economy. And so here too, we're talking massive scale, and we're looking to enable to our clients the optionality of using, multiple paths. We chose to do that there with Circle, And I think it has seen a lot of success. And similarly here, I think the idea is that to enable that optionality, per the prior question, you have the central approach, you have this decentralized approach. And I think, given the sophistication and different client segments that we have, ranging from, more TradFis all the way to really bleeding edge crypto forward, I think there's something for everybody.
That's awesome. And we kind of spoke about how we might be thinking about the tokens and where they can be used and the benefits of taking a decentralized, highly liquid and high utilization driven approach to the receipt tokens that are inside of this ecosystem. So I'm curious, Matt, can you tell us a little bit more about how these tokens can actually be used, what we should expecting once the protocol is live, and how users actually interact with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about the utility of the receipt token in a few ways. It's almost like the hierarchy of needs of a token holder, right? So the first thing that I'm able to do is obviously I need to get the token. So I exchange my ETH, get an LsETH token back, and this represents my staked assets. So I'm earning yield. And then from that, I can actually exit my stake position immediately by selling on a secondary market. So that's probably the first use case that I think will be super helpful. And then as we go down, you can essentially also use that LsETH token as collateral on, say, a DeFi venue, Aave or others. And so with that, you're able to mobilize your staked asset collateral. So you're still earning rewards while you're able to utilize it as collateral. There are other, probably yield or reward enhancement strategies that you can use on top of that, where, we've seen really interesting things evolve where I think one of the coolest is actually the receipt token represents rewards into perpetuity, which for traditional finance is kind of a hard concept to come to terms with. And so we're seeing fixed term, fixed rate structures that I think will evolve on top of this as well. So, a number of use cases for the receipt token, both in more centralized exchanges, but also in DeFi as well.
One thing that I was wondering about, and since we have you, Ben, on the panel with us today, maybe we can talk a little bit about, one of the core stakeholders inside of this protocol, the validators. How should we be thinking about the active set for the protocol? Is that really a centralizing force, or how should we be thinking about that?
Yeah, happy to address that. I think one point as well, just to tackle on to what Matt was saying, this is very innovative in that the fact that you can own an asset and be able to earn yield in that asset, being able to actually earn more rewards from that asset, right? If you are buying Bitcoin today, right, and if you want to actually receive more Bitcoin, you have to set up a hardware machine to be able to go and do that, right? Staking is the next iteration of that, right? Being able to actually participate in the protocol without knowing nothing from a computer science perspective, right? Being able to delegate your assets to one of these providers to be able to, to earn more rewards on that asset. Now, what's the next iteration of that? Let's make it even easier for you. All you have to do is buy a liquid staking token, right? And being able to do that, you're actually getting the rewards right in that single asset with nothing else to be done there. So I think that's just at its very, very core, a super innovative product. Even before you get to DeFi and all the other use cases that are going to come from this, just being able to buy a protocol, an asset, something that you believe in long-term, the functionalities, all the different things that could happen on Ethereum or other tokens going forward, and being able to participate in actually securing the network and getting rewarded for doing so as an individual, as an institution, that in itself is super innovative and really productive, I think, for our space going forward. And then, Mara, to your question, there definitely has been a lot of news recently post the merge, right, which happened a little over a week ago now, on how decentralized is Ethereum. And I think when we think about our project and how we actually help that ecosystem is that all of the validators that are on Liquid Collective are receiving an equal share of the assets that are coming in. And we are starting, as you said, sort of earlier, with a core set of validators to kind of prove why we're institutional, why there's a lot of trust in the system. But over time, as our space matures, there are going to be more validators added to that set, and it will always be equal among how the actual assets are divvied up to those different validators. So hopefully over time, it's more decentralized. We're actually getting a lot more ETH to a lot of different players in the space and being able to open the door for more people to buy this asset with easy on-ramps. So I think hopefully over time, it starts institutional. It starts somewhat, maybe if you want to call it centralized, with a few handful of institutional folks. But with that kind of that, once that trust grows, we're going to be able to actually add decentralization to the overall pool of the Ethereum validator set.
Yeah, definitely. And I would actually love to hear from you, Robert and Aaron. How should we be thinking about what matters to enterprises on the security and performance side, now that we've heard kind of the perspective on the validators and why the selection was made to focus on, you know, building a very robust model for the right standards for operations inside of the active set?
Yeah. Good point. I mean, we've already touched on some of the more fundamental things: security, transparency. I think that the people on this stage bring a ton of credibility to the project, given our reputation in both of those areas. I think with anything in crypto, what really matters here is knowledge and ease of access for people, right? And so, I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of educating people about liquid staking, about this protocol and this standard that's being built, why it's valuable and superior to conventional staking. And then ease of access is the quality of your distribution, right? And that's another thing that the folks on this stage can play a big hand in doing. You've got some of the biggest names in crypto that have the deepest institutional relationships, who are essentially distributing on behalf of the protocol, which I think is going to be a big driver of adoption for institutions.
Agree with everything Robert just mentioned, which is nice to have on this panel. I'll say a few things to consider from the way I see the business. First, we always look at security and usability, and I think this protocol has both. I'd say a couple of other points is the massive liquidity we expect this to have, so this can serve very large clients that have certain restrictions, risk committees, etc., can get comfortable with the ins and the outs. And then, I should mention Coinbase is a public company. And so, we always look to raise the bar when it comes to regulatory compliance in KYC, regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services, which is a very high bar. And so getting comfortable with all those things, we feel that there's going to be healthy client interest. I will mention, earlier the year, we launched ETH staking across all entities globally, and we saw very healthy interest. But at the same time, we got questions from specific clients around liquidity elements. And I think once this comes to the market, hopefully soon, there's going to be already a pipeline rallying around this that would get us, into the liquidity we're looking to have.
Awesome. I would love to dive a little bit more into that in a second here. But one question before we wrap up on kind of what comes next on the Alluvial and Liquid Collective side. So, Matt, we heard a couple of weeks ago that Alluvial and the Liquid Collective was launching on Ethereum originally. So we're super duper excited for that. But we also heard that, there's a great trajectory of partners that are lined up from the Akala team to expand into the Polkadot ecosystem, to the Benki team to expand over into the Avalanche ecosystem. How should we be thinking about kind of what comes from here and, what comes next on the roadmap?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're using a native chain builder approach. Essentially, we want to scale across chains by partnering with teams that already have existing solutions. There's a couple reasons for that. One is they have amazing relationships with those communities on those chains. They understand the values that are specific to those blockchains and can bring them forward into the implementation. The other reason is that from just a security or reliability standpoint, they've already been running for a while, so they're already proven solutions. And so what we can do is we're working with, again, the Rome Blockchain Labs for Avalanche and Akala for Liquid staking, working with those teams to essentially fork their protocol, bring it up to the standard, and then release it with the Liquid Collective. So bringing more and more teams into the collective is our goal. And so, that'll be how we scale across chains. I'd say the reason we chose those two chains specifically is, determined by, again, the utility on those chains, where we see them evolving, and the need for liquid staking. They both have unbonding times that are, very high. In 28 days, it's a very long unbonding time, and so that's where the liquidity need is probably highest.
Mar, just one thing to add to that, because the way that ETH is so high in market cap, right? It's about 12x the next biggest proof of stake market, which is Solana, I believe. Aaron talked about earlier, about 11% of ETH is staked today. But those other assets like Polkadot, Solana, Avalanche, those are typically somewhere between 60 and 80%, right? So there's a lot of assets. The community is already so used to already being their assets staked, right? And this is like a next level advantage. So there's like the bar to get those folks and those buyers of those assets into this industry is going to be even easier. It's a different sell, right, than talking to someone who's never staked before. But for all the other sort of majority of the large POS assets that are out there, it's typically in the 60 to 80%. So it's, I think, a really big opportunity for the assets beyond ETH as well.
That's super helpful context. And you touched on this really briefly there, but that adoption on-ramp is definitely a variable to consider, and what will make this type of technology successful. So I'm wondering, what challenges do we need to overcome for this to be viable and to actually hit the mainstream? And maybe we can start with Robert and kind of go through the rounds.
Yeah, I think I actually inadvertently touched on some of these things in my last response, but I think it comes down to a question of education and knowledge. It comes down to ease of access. It comes down to some of the regulatory questions that I think Aaron was pointing out, which Liquid Collective and Alluvial have done a great job of getting in front of and addressing. And so I think it's really the intersection of those three things from my perspective. We're going down the line.
Yeah, I mean, Another point to mention is like where a big point will be adoption and where Liquid Collective is going to be in a year, right? And adoption, you mentioned it, will come from dozens of integrators offering Liquid Collective to their clients, either retail or institutions mainly, and more validators start validating the network and making it more decentralized so that nodes are runs in a decentralized way, and I think we can outline it. It's already a huge success to have two of the main competitors in the staking business and two of the main competitors in the exchange industry getting together in one project and working for the best ethos of Web3, and it might be the first time we see this in this industry, and again, very excited to be part of that, and I think maybe we should clap for ourselves. So yeah, I mean, congrats, Mara and the Alluvial team for getting all these players together.
I think it's just about not screwing up, right? And if we do, we got to be really transparent about it, right? If we're going to make a mistake, if there's going to be something that we do wrong, we need to be open and honest about what we did, how we're going to fix it, and how we're about going forward, right? Our space is riddled with issues that have come along, and we keep going forward, right? There's hacks, and then we move forward. And I think that's really what the sign of the progress of this industry is. There's going to be speed bumps. We need to be open and honest about how we're achieving those, what went wrong, doing postmortems like we're doing it internal, but actually doing it externally and showing how we're growing and achieving those things. So when there are issues, which will be inevitable, being honest and open and making sure we're always learning and getting better from those situations.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And I think we're all kind of like beating around some of the same, values that actually we've prescribed. We put out the post, and I think we're taking a very principled approach here. We take a lot of our inspiration from Visa, actually, right? The credit card company. Not many people know that Visa, what led to that, right? And it was a ton of banks in the U.S. that were actually launching their own credit card programs. And so it was a similar aspect where you saw different liquid staking credit card solutions that were coming to market. And so what D-Hawk, the founder of Visa, did is he actually brought those banks together, and he was able to do that to eventually form Visa and put everyone on the same network. And so we're taking a similar approach and very principled, again, with the values of trust, collaboration, and excellence. And so everyone's kind of hitting on the same points of, in order to gain that trust, we need transparency. In order to push things forward, we need excellence and innovation. And so I think these are going to be vital to really push the collective forward. And we've seen it initially to get to this point, and I think we're going to see it go into the future.
So just a moment of reflection here. I recognize that I'm the last to address this question, and I think there is some diminishing returns in terms of the insights. And then on the other end, I know there's drinks coming, so I'll try to be brief. Agree with everything that was just said. I'd say as we think about the market, I think people would be looking for some validation. So we should probably expect to see some of the more crypto forward folks jumping in and some demonstrating value. And I think the interesting case would be once we have one of those bigger TradFi clients that express interest in getting into this business, appreciate the liquidity, appreciate the massive scale that they have and the collaborative approach. And I think from there, things will just take their own turn. So very exciting.
Amazing. I love that. And as you mentioned, Matt, Visa, incredibly exciting story. Sometimes it's not just about what you're building, but who you're building it with, right? So with that, and since we obviously all are excited to go over to the happy hour, right? Leave you with that. I hope we meet again next year here, right? Discuss all the incredible progress we've made. I think in many ways, we hope to come together to build what hopefully becomes one of the more impactful protocols that we see in Web3 today. And we need everyone here to be a part of that, to make that a reality. So looking forward to that. Get in touch with our team. We're super excited to chat with all of you, and thank you for coming.